Hello everyone, and we're gonna talk about the new endgame that's coming in patch 4.0 in Star Wars The Old Republic. However, we are gonna take a little look at what World of Warcraft is doing right now. So WoW in patch 6.2, they're running these weekend events. They're called Timewalker dungeons, where essentially what they do is they don't scale old dungeons to max level, they scale your character down. So it's kind of like SWTOR with a reverse, it's like a reverse bolster if you're used to SWTOR. But what they do is they downgrade you to the level of that instance. This weekend is the Burning Crusade, so we are downscaled to level 70. Now, the only things that are downscaled are our stats, kind of like SWTOR in reverse. It's like KDY in reverse. KDY boosts you to level 55, but you still keep all your level 22. If you were level 22, you keep all those abilities. Now, the problem with this in WoW is that you keep all your level 100 abilities, so the difficulty and the challenge that was maybe there at level 70, or the balance at least that was there at level 70, just isn't there because the game is totally different. At level 100, there's a whole new skills that you never had at that level. You've got a whole bunch of, you know, your class plays very, very differently from what it did back then, and as a result, they aren't hugely challenging. Some difficulties, if people pull too much, then you get killed. If you watch my Holy Paladin attempt at this, we're playing on our Destruction Warlock, nice bit of DPS. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to go back and do old content when, you know, when you're still very, very different and the content is not balanced around your class. If you go and do a level 100 heroic dungeon in Warlords of Draenor, you'll find them very, very different because, of course, they are balanced around your class at level 100, among your class abilities, should we say, for level 100, whereas the level 70s aren't. Now, how does this apply to SWTOR? Well, the entire end game for 4.0, as it seems, is going to be Timewalker operations, Timewalker flashpoints, essentially. It's BioWare's version of this. Really, what we're seeing in WoW, of course, they're not going to scale you down, they're going to scale the content up. However, it still presents the same problems that we see in World of Warcraft, where, but at least in WoW, that this is just a little weekend event. It's just a little bonus event, so it's not really hugely significant. You do get, as a reward, you get item level 660 gear, which if you're a raider, it kind of sucks. If you're not a raider like me, so it's okay. I mean, it's not too bad actually. So if you do the Tanan jungle, you get item level 650 or 655. So the baleful gear is 650, and the gear that you get that rares can drop and can you find from treasures is 655. So it's a slight gear upgrade on Tanan jungle, so they are worth doing if you're not a raider, and they're kind of fun. You can queue for them from level 70. At least if you're a level 70 character, you will get, I guess they'll bolster you up to a minimum item level. I don't think your item level really matters in these because they just kind of downscale your item level. You always see the item level that effective item level, and then your real item level is in brackets. So it's not really as if you're going to be massively overgeared or massively undergeared. I take it they'll just average you out, I guess, a certain item level that is required to complete this. Now, SWTOR is basing their entire endgame on this principle of just taking old content and sticking it up to level 60 plus, because we're going to level 65 in Knights of the Fallen Empire. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what they're gonna do about this. I mean, the biggest problem is balancing the content. I mean, Blizzard, they don't really have to do it because, well, you know, it's just a fun little weekend event. It's just like a little nostalgia trip. You know, you can do these dungeons in a group, and you know, the difficulty is not huge, but you know, it's relative to your level. You still have to be careful and things like that. You know, you can't just walk in to any of these dungeons at level 70 dungeons at level 100, and if you just want to do the story, you can just solo them. But if you want to experience them in a group, which is always nice, then you know, you can do that, and you get some rewards for doing it. Some little rewards you get. At 660 is the piece of gear that drops, so it's definitely, it's worth it if you have low gear. If you're not a raider in WoW, it's definitely worth it. If you are, probably not going to be worth it really, because you know, you'll be raiding Hellfire Citadel. At least they got a raid. I mean, you know, you could say that, oh, they got dungeon scale or character scaled to dungeons, but you know, they got a raid, at least a new raid in that patch. What are we getting in SWTOR in an expansion pack? That's what's annoying. We're getting nothing new, it seems. We're just getting story content, and that seems to be it in 4.0. But I think that there are lessons we can learn, and the lessons are balancing this content, balancing the old operations for level 65 is going to be difficult, because they were balanced for us at level 50. You know, they were balanced around our level 50 abilities. We already talked about this, about how certain mechanics that we can just flat out mitigate now, flat out ignore these days. Certain things, certain challenges for the healers. For example, when we couldn't heal on the move, you know, guard is going to be easier right now because we can heal people while we're jumping from platform to platform. We can hit progressive scan, we don't have to stack up for heals, you know, it's going to be a bit more movement, and they're going to introduce even more movement, they've said, in 4.0. So how do you balance that? If you're going to change that fight, the problem is if you change the fight, what's the point in having EV again? You might as well just create another, you may as well just go and create another raid instance, because you know, why have this bosses with different mechanics? What's the point in that if you're just gonna spend time and effort redesigning the mechanics to better suit our class? Why not just design a new raid? I mean, you know, the art department gonna be that busy in BioWare? Can't you outsource it or something like that? You outsource the art really for the raid? But if they're going to take all that time to just design new mechanics, design a new raid is the basic thing. Just get a new raid out there. And it is a problem. Same with the flashpoints again. Some of the challenges that we found, I mean, you're going to have to do certain things. You're going to have to unnerf LI, for example. LI should be, you should keep LI and Blood Hunt separately. You know, unnerf Blood Hunt, unnerf LI. Put it in a separate tier of Group Finder. I think you'd be happy with that because you get your challenge. Make the gear reward the same tier as the base level operations, and then it'd be okay. I think it'd be fine for that, really, if you did that as well. I think it would be pretty cool in that sense. But again, it's just scaling is going to be difficult. It's going to be so difficult. Unless you just tune their health pools up to ridiculous levels and then it just becomes a massive DPS race, or you just give them insanely high amounts of damage. I mean, again, it won't really, well, it'll just create artificial difficulty, I guess, if you just have them just output massive, insane damage numbers just so that we have to keep healing. I mean, it would be nice to have more mechanics. The only real operation I'm looking forward to is EC again, because EC was the best operation in the game. I thought EC, current content, best operation in the game. That needs to be a high-end one. It really needs to be. Whatever they decide to do with the raids in 3.0, EC needs to be towards the top. I think you have to have TOS and Ravagers probably at the top tier. EC deserves to be on that kind of level. Unnerf it, rebalance it, because it was an awesome raid. It had very good mechanics. It had some very good mechanics in that raid. Didn't rely on things like massive amounts of RNG and just AoE everywhere, although some fights were AoE everywhere, like the tanks, which are going to be fun again. Those tanks were awesome. That was a good fight. It was always fun doing it in Nightmare, where you had to be very careful of your AoE, especially if you were a TK Sage. Very, very careful on the AoE of those ads, you know, the amount of people that would kill the shields. You see it, again, you see it very much right now in Pugs, that a lot of people are just, you know, killing the shield. Not that it matters, because people just AoE anyway. It's going to be interesting when we see that at a current raid tier, and it's going to be fun. Certainly something that we're never going to pug at a current raid tier. I did pug it when they, you know, when they rebalanced it in 2.0 and we were leveling 50 to 55. The interesting thing about that operation was that they nerfed all the bosses but left the trash the same. So pug groups would not even make it to Zorn and Toth. They would wipe on the trash, which was hilarious because the trash was tough in EC, the trash was really, really tough. You had to CC things, you had those fucking stealthers, you had like random AoE going out. It was a tough fight, those trash mobs. You had to CC certain things. I can't remember what ones you CC now. I can't remember. You had the stealth bastards. You'd be in the middle of your master strike or something, and then they'd disappear, and then they'd go and attack someone else. Usually the tanks could never control them, so you always had to DPS the stealthers down first. But it was fun. It was a fun little challenge, and I remember just laughing at pug groups because they put EC in Group Finder. EC was never in Group Finder in vanilla. And Rise of the Hutt Cartel came out. They nerfed all the bosses, and they left the trash as it is, and some of that trash was tough. There was some mini bosses in that raid as well. There was the big, the other little Drauk that you fought. There was this there's the big two, Zorn and Toth, and then there was like another one that was like a little mini boss who could punt you off a cliff if you weren't careful, if you had your back to him. So you'd always kind of stand in front of him with the tanks, and he would do a big massive raid-wide knockback, which was hilariously funny to see people get punted off the cliff who would stand behind him. It was always fun. And if the tanks faced them away, the tanks got knocked off the cliff, which was it was always fun to see in pug groups. That was tougher than most of the bosses, should we say. People wiped. People didn't even make it to Zorn and Toth. I remember wiping Zorn and Toth such a long time. Such a good fight, actually. A really, really good fight. You always, melee DPS always would be on Toth. Zorn, you would always have to stay at max range because you would get the debuff, which meant you would hit your own face. What was it called? Fearful or something like that? Fearful debuff. You would just, basically all your damage would be reflected back to you. And that was horrible, to be honest with you. It was funny to see people smash their own faces and then blame the healer. I was like, oh, where's my heals? It's like, yeah, you got fearful debuff, so, you know, good luck with that. Good luck with that. And then you fought the guy that was controlling. It was actually, I think it was the guy that was controlling them was the actual boss. They weren't even the boss. Although I think they were the boss on the journal, on the lockout, the codex, should we say. But yeah, it was their handler that you looted. So yeah, he gave you the loot. Handler was always fun, especially with a lot of people dying. That was always fun for progression. So I hope EC gets boosted up, but there are going to be problems for that. I think EC will work well because if you unnerf it and put all the bosses back to where they were, pre-nerf, and tune it to nightmare difficulty, that is going to be fun. Or at least maybe tune it to HM, but it's going to make it the top end raid. And we'll see what happens in pug group, see how they deal with it. So anyway, thank you for joining me, and we'll see you again soon, and goodbye.